In the heart of Peru, mummies are being pulled from ancient graves.
We think that there is a whole family inside, 3, 4, 5 individuals.
Warriors, mothers, children. Each is a messenger from the past. From one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. Out of the Andes, they carved a civilization of staggering wealth. It was a violent land of earthquakes and volcanic mountains that pierced the skies. And yet, they conquered it and forged a great nation. For less than a century, it glittered like a jewel in the Andes until a dark force cast a shadow on their sun god and destroyed nearly everything the Incas had created. Today, the scattered remains are threatened by a growing population and the appetite of treasure seekers. Now it's a race against time as archaeologists struggle to save the last traces.
These people did something extraordinary here in the Andes. Peru's past should not be forgotten.
This is a very important work because it helped us to understand our past.
Mummies are like time capsules. They can teach us so much about what life was like 500 years ago, but we're losing them so quickly.
It's a fragile legacy the Inca left behind. But with every piece that's rescued, with every layer that's peeled away, the past is coming back to life. People of the Andes today walk in the footsteps of their ancestors. The remains of their forefathers are everywhere, reminders of a once great empire.
There's a growing pride amongst people in the Andes today about what their ancestors were able to accomplish. They did amazing things. This is the greatest empire we know of from the Western Hemisphere, and there's so much we still have to learn about it.
Based on what we do know, it was one of the most remarkable chapters in history. Less than 600 years ago, the Incas were just one of many indigenous peoples in this ancient land. But they struck out from their small mountain realm and launched an expansion that would prove one of the greatest in history.
In less than 100 years, the Incas expanded over a huge area. It's just a phenomenal accomplishment.
They claimed they were descended from the sun. Their conquest was peaceful, provided the vanquished obeyed and worshipped their sun god, Inti. As they conquered other cultures, they took the best of each and carried civilization to new heights.
The Incas were incredible. I mean, they did things that are hard to imagine even today.
They carved miles of terraces into the mountain walls, transforming impossible terrain into farmland. Ingenious aqueducts carried water from the icy peaks to the fields below. They erected monuments with mammoth rocks, cut so precisely, even a knife blade wouldn't pass through the joints. They built entire cities, like Machu Picchu, on remote mountain peaks. But one of their greatest accomplishments was their extraordinary network of roads. It was the lifeline of the kingdom and ran throughout the empire, more than 14,000 miles. The key to this network of arteries were the royal messengers.
The Inca had this incredible system of runners. They keep trading off, kind of like the Pony Express. And it's said that they could carry messages or even items like food hundreds of miles in a single day. I think the most astonishing thing is that the Incas were able to do this in one of the most rugged terrains on Earth.
It was these roads and the royal messengers that allowed as few as 100,000 Incas to rule over more than 10 million subjects. At the height of Inca rule, the empire stretched from what is now Ecuador all the way south to Chile, from the Amazon jungle to the Pacific Ocean. Within these borders were the 4 quarters of the earth. Everyone here was ruled by the Inca. On the western edge of their realm, near what is today Peru's capital city of Lima, lie the remains of a community that was once part of the empire. But in 1989, hundreds of homeless families moved in and established a foothold. The community of Tupac Amaru has transformed one of Peru's richest archaeological sites into an urban sprawl. The town is teeming with the living and the dead. Today is an auspicious day. A local known as Gato is performing a ceremony to mark the beginning of an archaeological dig. Project leader Guillermo Koch hopes the gods will be generous.
Gato is making an offering to the Pachamama, to the Mother Earth, in order to have a very successful excavation project.
Gato blesses the 4 quarters, as his ancestors did 500 years ago. In a prior dig, Willie discovered that hundreds of mummies were buried beneath this entire town. It's built on one of the largest Inca cemeteries in Peru. The town will soon install sewers and plumbing, and when it does, the mummies will be destroyed. With emergency funds from National Geographic, the team will now try to rescue everything they can, but they only have 10 weeks. They've begun a race against time. It promises to be a challenging dig. One of their main sectors lies smack in the middle of the schoolyard.
In this area, there used to be a graveyard. This was a sacred place. It was undisturbed for hundreds of years. In 1998, the people of the shantytown, using bulldozers, leveled this area in order to create the playgrounds for the school. Working at the schoolyard is pretty difficult. The students are on top of us, making our life difficult, and we are making so much dust. It's really tough.
But already, in this unlikely setting, the past is beginning to emerge.
The kids are very curious. They are very interested. They are learning a lot. It is really a unique opportunity for them to see the past, and it's their past.
What would life have been like under Inca rule? It all depended on your status.
If you were a subject of the empire, your life was going to be radically different than it would be if you were a member of the Inca elite.
It was with the sweat and muscle of their subjects that they built their kingdom. By harnessing those they conquered, the Inca forged a realm of enormous prosperity. It was a land of plenty.
They stockpiled tons of food in storehouses throughout the empire, and this meant that no one was going to go hungry.
It's said the Inca had stored enough food to feed the nation for years to come. This helped earn loyalty from those they conquered. But security came at a price. The Inca governed their subjects tightly.
What you had was a people that, on the one hand, were probably relatively content. The risk of poverty was kind of taken away. On the other hand, their freedom was taken away.
The peasant class was issued plots of land and told what to plant. They were told whom they could marry, where they could live, even how they should dress. Almost every action was regulated.
The Incas tightly controlled everything in their empire, and that's especially the case with the roads.
With no written language, they kept copious records with a series of knots. Little escaped their scrutiny. Everyone knew his place in the empire.
One of the most important things for the Incas was that they were able to control such a huge number of diverse peoples.
They managed to control their subjects even in the farthest reaches of their kingdom. Even here at the far edge of their empire, in what is today Tupac Amaru. It's been a week since Willie's team broke ground. The dig is already revealing volumes. The schoolyard lies right on top of a high caste burial ground, a massive cemetery for the elite. Here, beneath some of the world's worst poverty, lie yesterday's privileged few. Spondylus shells, brought all the way from Ecuador, were valued more than gold. But here in the schoolyard, the collision between the past and the future has reared its ugly head.
La han destruido completamente. Le han metido la máquina.
Mummies wrapped in cotton, buried in huge bundles, have been torn open by bulldozers. Body parts and offerings have been churned into the earth.
It has been split open. That's terrible, no? It was a high status burial, and now it's a myth. We have a piece of corn that was part of the offerings of this bundle. We have a ball of yarn for weaving. We have the feathers, and this is a part of the headband. We will recover some of this material, but it's a tragedy.
It's a tough dilemma. Archaeology, weighed against the needs of an expanding population.
There are almost 1,400 kids that goes to the school in Tupac Amaru. These kids are going to grow up, and each one of them are going to have 4, 5, 6 kids. And this is going to create a lot of pressure over the archaeological sites.
From the pieces scattered across the playground, they can begin to reconstruct the past. Like detectives, Willie and his team have learned to read the dead.
This child seems to have been an important child. Head races of this type were used only by people of high rank during the Inca times.
Physical anthropologists can read bones and teeth to gather more clues.
Just a child. Yes, there we have the first molar, just beginning to come through. I would say it's no more than about 6 years old.
Archaeological excavation is reconstructing the past by pieces, like puzzle. It's a million of pieces that we have to put together. With every bone, with every mummy we find, a living person comes back to life.
This was a child of wealth. What was his life as a subject of the Inca, here on the far edges of the empire? And why was it cut short? we may never have the answer. But for other children of the empire, archaeologist Johann Reinhardt has found some shocking answers high in the Andean peaks.
I spent over 20 years climbing in the Andes, and I've been pretty lucky and been able to find some incredible things up here. It never ceases to amaze me that the Incas managed to climb up to these altitudes. It's really tough.
Son of a gun. Can you imagine what it was like trying to do this 500 years ago? Those guys were something else. They obviously had to have been climbers. I mean, they had to know how to do this.
Up here amidst these incredibly high peaks, the Incas were conducting their most important rituals. The Incas didn't just break physical barriers, they broke, even more importantly, a psychological barrier. They actually entered into the realms of the gods. They worshipped all kinds of gods. There were gods for the sun, for the moon, for other stars. But the mountains in particular played an important role because they were perceived as controlling the weather. That was the reason they worshipped the mountains with such important offerings. In 1999, I went with a team of archaeologists from Peru and Argentina to Mount Yuyayaco, which is 22,000 feet high on the border of Chile and Argentina. This is the world's highest archaeological site. We found 3 incredibly preserved Inca mummies.
All 3 were children, sacrificial offerings to the gods.
One, unfortunately, had been hit by lightning, but it was still intact. I always wanted to look into the face of an Inca. And I never expected to be looking right into the face of an Inca child.
When I pulled back the cloth, it was feeling like I'd just gone back in time, and all of a sudden I was there with this girl, thinking what it must have felt like to be offered to the gods.
She must have had both a phenomenal courage and also, I think, a great sense of responsibility.
500 years later, this sacrificial child is sharing her story. Analysis of the DNA has revealed that 2 of the mummies might well have been related. Perhaps one family offered 2 of its children to appease the mountain gods.
Mummies are the real time capsules because they take us back in time in a way that nothing else can. They provide the kinds of information that you can only get through bodies, through human beings.
Mummies might be the most precious legacy left by the Inca. Those from different parts of the empire provide different pieces of the puzzle. In Tupac Amaru, Willie's team has dug deep enough that they're now finding mummies perfectly intact, preserved by the bone-dry sands of Peru's desert coast. These mummies are unique. They're huge. Wrapped in yards of cotton, there may be as many as 7 bodies inside each bundle. They're bursting with information about the past. It's an archaeologist's dream.
It's going to weigh a ton, at least 80 kilograms. No? They think that there is a whole family inside, no? 3, 4, 5 individuals.
Some of the mummies at Tupac Amaru have another unique trait. They were given false heads, or falsa cabezas. Made of wrapped cotton, they represent the head of an individual. they're extremely rare.
Only one was known before our excavations, and some people have doubts that that was an Inca period bundle. We are all very impatient to see what's inside this bundle, no? But we are going to have to wait. We are going to have to do it at the lab.
As the weeks pass, mummy after mummy arrives at the lab. But it's months yet before they'll be unwrapped. The team has only 5 weeks left, and each day the pressures of the growing town are taking their toll.
There are 1,140 families living in Tupac Amaru. That's about 14 to 15,000 people. They lack water supply, sewage, plumbing, and you can see the water goes into the ground, and each day more mummies are being destroyed. This is why this salvage is so important.
The team is racing to get the mummies out of the ground and into safety. But it's not just the bundles that are threatened. Offerings buried with them provide information about the people who lived here. The deeper they dig, the more bundles appear, and with them, more clues. A ceramic pot can help date a cemetery. This one's better than gold.
The arrivalo is the classic ceramic from the Inca. It really confirms the relationship between the people that were buried here with the Inca Empire.
Based on their wealth, it appears they were satisfied subjects of the empire. But the Inca's rule would be short-lived.
It's really amazing that the Inca Empire only lasted for about 100 years. It was a very brief reign.
For nearly a century, life for the Inca flourished until their glittering, well-ordered kingdom caught the eye of strangers halfway round the world. The year was 1530, and the royal messengers carried news from the border. A mysterious illness had invaded the northern reaches of the empire. Smallpox had taken the lives of thousands, and the Inca ruler was dead. Civil war had erupted between the king's 2 sons. One of them, Atahualpa, was determined to seize the throne. But he had no idea of the legacy he was fighting to inherit. A small group of Spaniards had arrived by ship. They were traveling the Inca's roads.
The Spanish brought diseases into Mexico, which then swept through South America and set the stage for the collapse of the Inca Empire.
This made it much easier for a small group of Spaniards to conquer them.
Fueled by lust for gold and commanded by an illiterate soldier named Francisco Pizarro, a ragtag army of fewer than 200 horsemen and foot soldiers were marching straight to the heart of the empire. News of the strangers preceded them. Atahualpa had emerged triumphant in his battle for the throne. Preoccupied by victory, he allowed passage to the intruders. He'd been advised that they wouldn't be a threat. On strange, 4-legged creatures, the motley band of Spaniards rode. They were allowed to march along the highway, unchecked. It was an unfamiliar sound that echoed through the mountain passes. Could they have known this otherworldly sight would soon unravel their very existence?
The Spaniards were so different. There had been no contact with the European civilization, so everything from steel swords to horses and so on were just new, totally new to the people in the Andes.
Though small in number, the conquistadors held the deadly upper hand. The Inca underestimated the viciousness of their foes.
The Spaniards arranged to meet with Atahualpa, and they set up an ambush. In just a matter of hours, they managed to kill thousands of Incas without a single loss of life amongst themselves. It was a dramatic victory.
The sun had begun its descent on the empire. Only a flame would continue to flicker.
After the conquest, a small band of Incas fled to a remote region of the Andes called Vilcabamba, and here they managed to remain hidden for nearly 40 years.
Nearly 5 centuries later, an expedition is headed to the last refuge of the Inca. With support from National Geographic, the international team is being led by explorer Peter Frost.
We spotted 2 years ago what looked to be an Inca burial site and an Inca platform along the end of a ridge. It's deep in the heart of Vilcabamba, the area where the last Incas took refuge after the Spanish conquest. We're a bit nervous, but we're also thrilled. If we find something there, it's a significant historical find.
Peter and the team have a rigorous 4-day trek ahead of them. A helicopter is bringing the rest of the team to the site in Vilcabamba. It's passing over Andean peaks once sacred to the Incas. The ancient city of Choqquequirao lies below, a massive Inca ruin, only now being excavated. A group of Peruvian archaeologists, including Dr. Alfredo Valencia and archaeogeophysicist Meg Waters, are joining the expedition that left on foot a week ago. The archaeologists have an enormous amount of ground to cover. Peter's anxious to get started.
The western end of this mountain called Cerro Victoria, it's not been visited by archaeologists or explorers of any kind as far as we know.
The team has only 4 weeks in which to begin mapping and excavating a 2.5-mile area.
This site is so big and so spread out that we're going to split up into 3 teams working in different places to cover as much ground as we can. We've got these 2 sites here, the 2 platforms.
Just as this excavation is getting started, Willie's dig, at the other edge of the empire, is nearing its end. Winter has come to Tupac. The archaeologists have been working around the clock. Their funds will run out in only a week, and there are volumes yet to excavate. The gods, it seems, have been generous to the archaeologists. Gato's offering to Pachamama 9 weeks ago has proven all too effective. The team has uncovered nearly 200 bundles, and they're unearthing more each day.
Willy, ven para que veas la última falsa cabeza. Mírala, ¿ven? El problema es que ya estamos en los últimos días y tenemos que sacarlos rápido, porque ya no vamos a tener mucho tiempo. Y es una de las más grandes que tenemos ahora.
Vamos a tener que correr.
Progress is snapping at the archaeologists' heels. Utility companies have begun their installations. Once again, the past is colliding with the future. The team will salvage as much as they can before their time is out.
We are practically finishing now, no? we are to some extent being kicked out. The electrical company started to install the electrical poles a couple of weeks ago. And in this case, when they were digging for one of the poles, they found this very large bundle. Gato is cleaning a mummy bundle for a little child.
As a member of Willie's team, Gato has gained a deep regard for his past. But he's also a resident of Tupac and a father. He wants a decent future for his kids.
I have 5 kids. I'm the father of 5. I'm worried because we don't have what we need. We don't have the basics. We don't have water. We don't have light, for example. And it's been like this for 10 years. We've been waiting for this in Tupac, to live with ease. I'm getting old. Why am I doing this? For the children.
It's a very uncomfortable situation. We know that we are going to be living here many, perhaps hundreds of bundles. But life is like that. There are no more resources, there is no more time. Bueno, muchas gracias.
Ciao, ciao.
They may not have rescued everything, but they've managed to salvage more than 200 bundles. What will these teach us about life in the Empire? And will they shed light on one of the darkest chapters? Life after the Empire's collapse.
This was one of the most incredible feats of conquest that was ever carried out in history. You had a dramatic change take place in a very short length of time.
Soldiers of fortune now controlled the kingdom. They drained the empire and exploited its people. They had little interest in the Incas' well-ordered ways. It was gold they were after. Even the great Atahualpa was merely a pawn.
In a plea for his life, Atahualpa ended up offering the Spaniards a room full of gold. That was an incredible amount of wealth.
They collected their ransom and killed Atahualpa nonetheless. In the years that followed, the Incas launched numerous attempts to reclaim their kingdom, but they proved futile in the end. The last of the empire finally collapsed in their mountain refuge of Vilcabamba. A week into their expedition, Peter Frost and Dr. Valencia are finding the site is richer than they dared imagine.
We've got a wall and structures that are clearly Inca in design, and we're finding pottery that also has Inca characteristics. There clearly was a sizable community of people living here.
On a ridge below, Dr. Valencia's team has begun excavating a round structure they suspect was a dwelling. The shards they're unearthing might not look like much to the untrained eye, but to Dr. Valencia, they're enormously valuable.
Encontrar tesoros, oro, plata.
Finding treasures of gold, silver. For archaeologists, this doesn't interest us. What we are interested in are these shards are real treasures of information, because we can find out from these ceramics how they lived during the time of the Incas, what kinds of things they did.
This site was abandoned. We don't know exactly when, but it must have had something to do with the Spanish conquest.
Peter's team has discovered a stone building, which they hope will shed light on the last days of the people who lived here.
There's something quite poignant because it does seem to have been a settlement that was mainly occupied after the conquest, when the Incas were holding out here in Vilcabamba against the Spanish. I feel a certain awe at seeing all this here. It was more than any of us imagined, and to find a building as well preserved as this storehouse is quite extraordinary. It's the most complete, the most intact building I think we've seen, isn't it?
Boy, is that one solid piece of stone through there? This is pretty high status stonework.
Yeah.
Really good work.
Remains of the Inca are scattered throughout these hills. Each day more are being unearthed, not just by archaeologists, but by homesteaders who've moved to the area. The home of Valentin Saka is full of artifacts from his ancestors.
Esto sí he encontrado. Es de Inca es. Esto también es Inca. Después esto también.
Valentin moved here 2 years ago in search of a better life for his family. Now he's recycling his heritage.
Ahí estaba piedras de Inca. Acá está mi pared. Voy a hacer una casa.
He's dismantled Inca ruins in order to build a new home for his family. They're desperately poor, only trying to survive. But even the most innocent actions can have serious consequences.
You know, when farmers move into these remote cloud forest regions, there's a cycle of destruction that takes place. They uncover archaeological sites that are then looted, and pretty soon the archaeological site is gone.
Back on the platform, they've begun to excavate. But so far, the findings are disturbing.
Carlos is saying that this has been looted, this tomb here, which is surprising. It's puzzling, you know, to me, because there's no sign of any disturbance on the surface. These tombs can tell us a lot about what the lives of these people may have been. But this one's gone.
They're finding tomb after tomb that's been looted.
Oh, it's amazing how even in a site as remote as this, half a day's walk from the nearest village and 4 days' walk from the nearest road, and looters have been here before us.
Throughout Peru, it's a race for archaeologists to get to Inca tombs before the looters do. Just 40 miles north of Willie's Dig in Tupac Amaru, ancient settlements and graveyards pepper the countryside. But looters have left scars that will never be erased.
The whole cemetery is practically gone. It looks like the moon.
The plundering begun by the conquistadores nearly 500 years ago has plagued Peru ever since. Generations of grave robbers have made a living looting tombs. But today, it's big business tied to an international black market. Some of Peru's richest burial sites have been decimated.
This cemetery has been completely wiped out. We will never really learn about the people that live here. The past is disappearing too fast.
In a nearby town, ordinary homes are often transformed into shops full of artifacts. A hidden camera reveals how widespread the looting is.
¿Cómo está? ¿Tiene algo para ver? The problem with the looting is a very complex one. It has to do with people's poverty, it has to do with social beliefs. It has also to do with the little resources that the government has. This is Inca. Inca period, no? Local Inca. Blaming the looters alone is too easy and will not solve the problem. ¿Cuánto cuesta esta? 70 soles.
So much of the Inca's past has been siphoned from the country, locked away forever in private collections. Back in Willie's lab, the artifacts rescued from Tupac Amaru are safe. They'll remain in Peru. Their final resting place will be in a museum near the community that displaced them. The rooms are bursting at the seams, with mummy bundles waiting to share their stories.
This is a moment that we were waiting for months. It is really the first time that this type of bundles is going to be unwrapped under tightly controlled conditions. I would have liked to excavate this cemetery 20 years ago and have 20 years more to study it. It's going to provide great answers. Analyzing the offerings is going to provide us clues.
Who were the people buried beneath Tupac Amaru, and what was their role in the empire? Based on their findings in the field, Willie suspects this was a community of weavers, one of the most prestigious crafts in the empire.
Most of the people here have textile making implements. Textiles production was an important element of the Inca Empire. This individual was undoubtedly a rich person. In the Andean society, the textiles were one of the products with the highest value. Esto es realmente valioso, ¿no? Even textiles were more valuable than gold. Were these people producing these textiles for the Inca administration? That's one of the main questions that we have.
Every item provides more clues, but also more questions. Who did this weapon belong to? And was he friend or foe of the empire? The warrior's bundle contains more than one body.
There is this little child's bundle that is inside the large bundle, which is collapsing, and we have to take it before. Ustedes sostengan abajo. About 45 to 46% of the bundles that we have been able to recover belongs to children. To us, it's very intriguing. It's almost a mystery, and the physical anthropologists are working hard in order to determine why these children were dying in this area.
Es un unco de un bebé.
A tunic is wrapped inside the child's small bundle, as well as packages of offerings. A comb, silver tweezers, and a scale. What were their significance in the life of this child? No more than 6 months old, in his feathers and finery, he was probably a wealthy boy. Perhaps he witnessed the last plentiful days of the empire, just before the conquest. One bundle from the cemetery is unlike any other. Based on pottery found with it, Willie believes this burial took place after the Spanish conquest.
This is a very special bundle. This seems to belong to the early colonial period. Very little is known about after the Spaniards arrived in Peru. We ask ourselves about that shocking time of the conquest, when they saw these strange people with different animals, with the firearms that were unknown here, health problems, starvation, the stress they must have gone through.
The Spaniards unraveled the empire and turned its subjects into slaves. In only 50 years, hunger, cruelty, and disease reduced the population by as much as half. The bundle seems to mirror the hard times that came with the conquest. It contains only one small offering, a gourd. A baby's bundle lies beside the body of the adult. It's almost perfectly preserved.
Wow, sus manos. Mira sus dedos, ve. Está completito.
Physical anthropologists will study the bones to learn details of its life and death.
Yeah, it looks like it's about 3 years old.
All this porosity.
Yeah, the porosity, it really indicates it was very sick at the time of its death, probably suffering from some malnutrition and maybe also some type of anemia.
To be very extreme.
Yeah, that's pretty
bad.
that's pretty pronounced. It looks to be a pretty sick kid. Yeah.
This child allows a glimpse into a chapter we know so little about, but one that was so pivotal. What will the adult in the bundle tell us? It's a woman, perhaps the mother of the child.
When I look into her face, I wonder who she was, how she died. We are doing studies about DNA, to establish kinship. We are studying also the diet through chemical and physical analysis. This is going to be a long-term study. It's going to take 5, 6, 8 years. As a Peruvian, it is very important because it helped us to understand our past, to learn from where we are coming and where we are going as a nation. We are acquiring a new sense about ourselves.
Today in the Andes, the impact of the conquest still lingers. Most of the indigenous people now live in poverty. In the little town of Payata, people scrape an existence from the earth. But the once fertile soil of the empire is now poor, and malnutrition is a threat. This was once a prosperous Inca stronghold. The storehouses that 500 years ago were brimming with food now stand like ghostly reminders that there was once an abundant kingdom. Scattered across the hillsides, the Incas' terraces lie crumbling. But here, in the hills above Payata, there is renewed hope. The villagers have turned to the wisdom of their ancestors. They're rebuilding the terraces of the Inca. Emilio Huarcaya is hoping their efforts will bring a turn of luck to his family. They have only a few weeks to get the crops in.
Estamos restaurando los andenes como los incas. Somos fuertes como los incas, que llevamos la sangre de los incas.
The terraces are nearly complete, but they'll be useless without a water supply. The Incas' ingenious waterways have become choked with weeds after centuries of neglect. With support from Edesa, a group dedicated to the welfare of Andean communities, the irrigation canals are also being restored. The terraces are finally complete. It's time to open the canals. Here in Payata, they have resurrected the terraces of their forefathers. The harvest is on its way. The soul of a great empire is being kept alive. In Tupac Amaru, the children are learning the names of the Inca rulers. Their forefathers will not be forgotten. In Vilcabamba, the expedition has appointed Valentin guardian of the archaeological site where he lives. He's now protecting his corner of the Andes. In the hills above Payata, the terraces have yielded their first harvest in hundreds of years. The people of Payata have begun a new chapter of their lives.
I never feel like I'm studying dead history when I'm studying the Incas because their culture has survived. The people of the Andes carry it inside them. Their culture is full of customs, beliefs, behavior. People are still holding the Inca culture in their hearts.
Some people in the Andes are still thinking that there is a Pachacuti, a world-changing time to come, and that when it does, they will revert back. It'll be this cycle back into the great times they had when the Incas were in power.
The spirit of a great empire lives on.